Let's welcome our hosts, Jay Cherish and Dame Deity. This is Millennial Intent, conversations that matter.
Today's conversation, we're going to be discussing whitewashing versus blackwashing. Now, if you've heard of whitewashing, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Whitewashing has originated from mainstream movies or motion pictures, where they're putting white roles or white actors in roles that were basically for non-black or minority people. Um, in older generations, they may consider this as blackface when, actors would dress up, white actors would dress up with paint on their face, black paint, and would portray black people, maybe in a negative way or a positive way. I wouldn't say it was positive because it's blackwash. My opinion, whitewashing is systematic racism. That's just my opinion. However, the origin of whitewashing comes from or refers to erasing minorities in films or advertisement and appearance of minority roles are placed with white actors. And as we're pushing more in the 21st century, we're seeing this shifts a little bit, pivot, and we're seeing more black roles that were made for white actors being played by minorities. And this has changed the game a little bit. According to blacks or minorities, they feel that systematically these roles have not been placed, and now that they're here, it's not racism. It's just their time. What do you think?
I honestly think as a Black person, blackwashing is just as dangerous as whitewashing. I think it does a disservice to Black people, and it shows a shortage of roles that should be created for Black people. I think they're trying to say that it's inclusivity, but in my opinion, they are destroying source material and originality to say, let's be inclusive. And as a Black person, I don't understand why you would want somebody's leftovers. We see a lot of this in like superhero movies, where they're either gender bending or they're, changing the character's race. And we understand a lot of times in like superhero movies and different stuff like that, they're like alternate timelines and stuff like that, where some of that is acceptable. But I think mainly though, when you watch your favorite comic or whatever it is, and you identify with that person, whether it's Black, white, not everybody identifies just with someone's color. You can still identify with somebody and they not be the same color or gender as you. A lot of us like to see the source material as it is, whether it's Black, white, Latino, whatever. So to me, as a person that's into gaming and stuff like that, I don't like it. It's irritating to me. And I just wish that there would be more roles and more characters brought in that were made for Black people versus changing someone else's, in my opinion.
I can respect that. I think this conversation came up. I think was it last year when the Disney Little Mermaid came out
I don't
with
know. No, I've been seeing it a lot. Like the biggest one I disagreed with was they had a Black actress, or I don't think she was Black. I'm sorry. She was an African actress, and she was playing Anne Boleyn, which is one of Henry VIII's wives. But that's even worse to me because you're now we're saying it's okay to blackwash historical people. Now, if we all know that if Charlize Theron was to dress up as Rosa Parks, everyone would have a fit. We all know that if Tom Cruise was to play Malcolm X, everyone would be up in arms. These are historical figures. You're literally blackwashing historical figures, and you're crossing a line there.
And I think there was a conversation about, like, say, what if Julia Roberts played Harriet Tubman? Then it would be an issue.
Exactly.
But I think that a lot of, for the Black Twitter or just in general, we're speaking that there has not been any opportunities for minority actors. And this is a time now in this century that we're finally getting roles and jobs that we never had before. And like you said, it was leftovers, but we're just looking for the opportunity, not necessarily feeling like I agree with historical actors because I feel like if it's written this way or like we know who Martin Luther King is. We lived in a time we've seen him, we know who he was, and it will be a disservice for Brad Pitt. I to play Martin Luther King when you're looking at you know what I mean? When you're like, that's like that Whitney Houston movie. When I'm looking at a biography, I want the person to emulate that person as much as they can. I want to see Whitney. I don't want to see whoever. I don't want to see when you looked at Holly Berry and she played oh my goodness, from Carmen, what is her name? Dorothy Dandridge. You actually look at her and say, okay, I can see the resemblance and I see that's who she portrayed. So when I get what you're saying when it comes to looking at in their historical people, you want them to represent that person and then not of a different race. You know, I get that because it's kind of like, hey, what are we doing here? But I guess like for the Little Mermaid, people are like, well, it's fictitious. Like, does it
But it
matter?
doesn't,
The
but it
mermaid.
does matter because there's a little, white girl, there's a little Irish girl that finally had a princess that she identified with.
Mhm.
Back in the day, redheads were seen as like witches and bad luck and all this different kind of stuff. Even white people have their own things where they've been pushed out of, and not even just white people, but people of all different around the world had like, stereotypes and stuff like them, just like albinos had, stereotypes and different things about them. Everybody and every race have something that they had to overcome. And I don't think we're doing anybody a disservice by whitewashing those characters. I feel like if, to me, the Little Mermaid could have been a different mermaid altogether. I don't understand why it needed to be redone. I'm a big fan of the original voices, and she's so cute, like the new mermaid. She's adorable. But to me, and Black people, in my opinion, again, with their emotionality and they're so simple minded, why are you okay with taking a now Blackwash version of something that we grew up with? We enjoyed this princess. I
Mhm.
don't like that she's been changed. And not because I have a problem with that, but I'm just like, why couldn't you have made another origin for us? Why couldn't we have a princess from a different place? Why couldn't she could still be in a mermaid, but why did she have to be that mermaid?
Yeah. But I think the conversation is there is no creativity and there's no budget for roles for minorities. And it's like you have
I
to take
disagree.
and you, but where, if you really go and look back at anything, even with like, say, if you look at Destiny's Child, I know they're all talented in their individually, they're talented. Excuse me, guys. However, Beyonce was the lighter one besides Michelle and she has been the biggest star. Even when she does her makeup, they say, they make her skin as light as they can possibly get it. And that's just I know it's a little bit different within conversation, but every role that we're seeing in just any roles for Black women, they always look white. They always are the lighter skinned Black women. I know that's a little more colorism, but I mean, there's no roles really for Black people unless they're low budget.
There's plenty of roles. The issue is that when Black people and Black creators come up with something, they're emulating white people instead of coming up with their own originality because you're too busy trying. And then I think in some ways, Black people become their own preventers in many issues because when I feel like when white creators want to create white characters and stuff like that, like Michonne from The Walking Dead, she was the darkest thing in there. She's absolutely gorgeous, and you criticize them for that. When white people try, you criticize them and then you say that they're not good enough and that it's not good enough. And so which one do you want? You
Mm-hmm.
either want them to try and then you get mad at like I read something where nobody liked Tim Burton, or they were trying to cancel Tim Burton because he just basically said that he doesn't make Black characters. But why would he? He is not a Black person. He doesn't identify as a Black person. That's not his wheelhouse. Most of his characters are dead anyway. So what does it matter if he doesn't, he doesn't draw them? Or Stephanie Myers. Why wasn't there more people of color? Stephanie Myers is not a Black person. Why? That may be not what she sees every day. Why would she draw or talk about a whole bunch of Black people or try to get things in the Black view when she doesn't, when she's not a Black person? But if she tried, y'all would say something about her too. I know Black people would criticize them. They are so critical of everybody else, but when we have opportunities to make movies, we're making gangbanger movies.
Yeah, but that's the same thing Tyler Perry said. He creates roles for Black people, and they criticize him because they say, the stereotypes of a Black woman, they're always negative. So it's kind of like, I guess we would say, like, a good example would be the Bridgerton. I mean, these roles, they mixed up the characters, and they had some Indian and some Black, and but
girl, ain't nobody in Bridgerton Black, but go ahead.
there was the guy,
those people from across the water. Go ahead.
well,
I said what I said.
Of African descent, and there was still an issue with that. And some people say,
no, the issue wasn't that they were Black or Black descent or whatever. The issue was the fact that these were all originally white characters. Mm-hmm. And they were gender bended and they were color washed into something else to be quote unquote diverse. But changing somebody's stuff or changing someone's literature is not diverse to me.
But I think it was by Shonda Rhimes.
But that Bridgerton is not hers. Bridgerton is not hers.
But she created that series for Netflix. And I think she is a person that wants to include every race.
And she should make her own original stuff and do that.
I think she did it with, was it?
Grey's Anatomy?
Not Grey's Anatomy, but How to Get Away with Murder. And what is the Olivia Pope one that I used to watch? Oh my goodness, Scandal. Mm-hmm. So those are some of her original forms of characters, and she puts.
I wasn't impressed with Bridgerton, but go ahead.
She puts Black women in mainstream roles that aren't.
Yeah, but if you want to talk about it, she still uses really light-skinned women. I think or people who for me, it's the same thing. The only person I saw that was a little darker was Viola Davis.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I feel like the same things still stand.
Well, I just don't know, when we have all this criticism on these type of things, like, what is the solution? I'm always solution driven. I know I say that a lot.
The solution is very simple.
Mm-hmm.
As millennials, we're the next creative force. And the idea is for all of these people to come up and make our own things and not whitewash them. If we want white people in our stuff, then invite them in and make the roles for them. And the same thing with Black people. I'm not comfortable with you taking roles and switching them just because. And the thing is, I feel like they're pandering to Black people. It's not, let's offer you this role because I think this is a great, opportunity for a Black person to be represented. I think it's more like pandering to a group of people to just get them in for viewership. Like, I feel like the most authentic Black roles I've ever seen, and I know this is like a superhero movie and maybe some people won't understand it, but when I watch Wesley Snipes in Blade, he is probably one of two actors, Michael Jai White and Spawn, that I don't even see race when I watch these two. Mm-hmm. They're just really amazing actors. And when they were put out and when Marvel put them out, they put them out not as representation. There was no kind of like, ulterior motive when they were put it out. They were put out at a different time where these were just amazing superheroes. And this wasn't just put out, okay, well, let's see how many Black viewers we can get if we put out Spawn. And that's why the Black Panther was taken like that, because it's just like, it was put out, instead of putting it out because this is an amazing superhero and, Chadwick played it well, you put it out to pander people.
Mm-hmm.
So all I'm saying is there's plenty of Black superheroes. Why can't we just bring them out? There's plenty of Black characters, Black stories everywhere. Why can't we just bring those out?
I think we had this conversation before, is we're too busy trying to get across 105th Street that we don't have time for creativity sometimes. And when we do, it's that grasp of information. I think that other cultures are, they read and they have that research, they have that time to be creative when we're just getting over the struggle. I know it sounds bad. And Black people make movies that they can represent. When you see Ice-T make movies, he does movies that he can relate to, or examples or ideas that he's
Ice-T is
familiar with.
Black.
Ice Cube. What did I say? Ice Cube.
Oh, I thought you said
Ice
Ice-T.
Cube.
I was
Sorry,
like,
please forgive me. Ice Cube. You know, when he makes movies like Friday and
oh, see, I'm
you
Black and I live in the ghetto and I still can identify with those movies. I cannot. I cannot.
well, that was a different time. But you know, there's Black cinema and there's movies that we know. And I had this conversation with a white girl one time, and she's like, "Well, those are the movies Black people want."
No, I can't stand none of them.
That's
They'll
the
be like, girl, you ever watched The Color Purple? And I just have a blank. I guess I'm not that Black. I just never, I don't care what my struggle was back in the day. I never could relate to those movies. Movies like Roots and stuff like that really bothered me. And trust me, when it comes to seeing systematic racism and racism in general, I see it. I am not closed minded, any of that stuff. And you say that we don't have time to read. I humbly disagree. One of my first books was Anne Rice. One, and that's how I got into vampires and pretty much all things gothic. I've been reading my entire life, and I didn't have any money, and I had very little, limited education. So I don't think a struggle is an excuse for just being literary challenged. I think that people just don't utilize, especially in our age
I agree.
bracket, they didn't utilize what
The
they had.
library.
A lot of Black people were out there, being on the streets instead of broadening their mind, reading Shakespeare. And I'm not even, there was so much Black literature back in the day where people would let me read some of those books. And, I just got mind blasted with just reading. So I don't believe in that whole, I know there's a struggle, but I'm just saying there's no excuse for broadening your
There's
reading
no
horizon.
excuse, but I mean, sometimes you're a product of your environment. If that's not what you know, I mean, with us, I mean, that was part of the library, was a part of our culture. Like we had to go, we had to pick up a book, and we had to go places, and we just went for fun. A lot of sometimes the challenges of just your surrounding area just to survive. You don't
No,
necessarily,
the little Black kids were going to the library to look up porn. That's the difference.
but is that because of their environment? You know, is that their
What's the
parents?
environment? You surrounded by books, but you chose to do something else. One thing about
But where did
schools
they learn
is
that
they
characteristics from? Where
what's
did they
not
get? You don't just grow up just automatically saying, they must have seen it somewhere. They
yeah,
must
it's
have heard
called
it
kids do what they want when they're in groups. That's what it's called.
in groups. So they got that from their peers, and now that's all they know.
I think we're oranges and apples, and we're making an excuse for bad behaviors. Like,
I
one thing about school is that back in the day, especially, they made instances for kids to read. Like,
Mhm.
you got free pizzas for school. You got, movie tickets for school. Like, reading was big. Schools were huge into reading. Once I learned how to read, it was on and popping for me. Like, that
Yeah.
was it. That's all I needed. It was like it opened my mind and opened my horizons and taught me everything else. And that's all I could take from life, is just being able to read.
And I think that a lot of that creativity is lacking because a lot of kids, and this is a whole nother conversation, so I won't go down this trail, but the creativity comes from reading and having that experience and that knowledge. A lot of kids, they only do is look at movies online. They don't broaden their horizon, and they don't have a good vocabulary to read. I mean,
Yeah, but this is a newer issue. Back in the day, that we didn't have all that. We had not everybody had gaming consoles because they were super expensive back in the day. Having your own private game console was a new thing. That's when you started, getting the Sega Genesis and stuff. Well, it goes even further back than that. But even then, everybody didn't have one. We still went out to the arcades. We had like Aladdin's Castle, we had Tilts, we had like Gamers Asylum, we had all those things back in the day. So there was no excuse for this generation, the millennials, not to have as much stuff out and not to not to be able to produce their own stuff. What it is that they just want to be accepted by white people so bad
Yeah,
that
but
instead of going out and making their own things, they get mad when they are not getting roles with them. Just go make your own stuff.
But is acceptance or budget? Because there's some films, where's the money coming from? You have to think about when people are sponsoring these movies and they're looking at revenue, they're going to be, they want people that's actually going to pay. I'm not saying that Black people don't pay for things. I'm just saying
It
that.
has to start somewhere. Just like when the white people started, it didn't start. No, they didn't have all the money. They had to start and they had to get more popular, like ABC and Walt Disney and all this different kind of
But
stuff. The money didn't just fall out of the air. Yes, they
yeah,
obviously had more capital, but still.
but look at Tyler Perry. He has created a lot of movies and he has been known for undercutting some of their actors by giving them a platform, but using all that resources to put back into his movies. And now he's a billionaire. And he says instead of making a path in that white field, meaning like accepting roles.
Think maybe, and this is just an opinion, this is just completely opinion based. Maybe I would take that criticism and just say maybe I need to diversify. But one thing I'll say about Tyler Perry is that he has black, other colors and stuff like that in his rate, in his movies and stuff like that. I don't feel like it's super like there's white people, there's all different kind of people. I'm not saying it's super diverse, but there are other people in there. So he's not like just diehard all black people. But maybe it's time to it's to make more things that aren't always such just the hard experience of black people. The thing I'll say about Tyler Perry is that he has black, other colors and stuff like that in his rate, in his movies and stuff like that. I don't feel like it's super like there's white people, there's all different kind of people. I'm not saying it's super diverse, but there are other people in there. So he's not like just diehard all black people. But maybe it's time to it's to make more things that aren't always such just the hard experience of black people.
I think
Maybe maybe make a superhero movie. I don't know.
I think he's getting more. That would probably take time, but he's saying that why fix something that's not broken if that's his catering to his market, which are people are watching it, no matter if it's negative or positive feedback, people are still watching. So he's catering. So those are things he's putting black people in roles that are made for black people in his eyes.
Right,
But
but
I'm
you
saying
have to
that,
understand black people are a very small percentage of the world. That's not Main Street marketing. If you want to be known worldwide, you have to be a little bit more diverse because even the people that they're talking about some white roles or Latino roles or all this stuff, but most of these same people that were even the Asians, they like to identify as white. I don't care how you freaking cross it. So even the white market still caters to everybody else because most of those people claim that side. I used to do surveys, and when you ask even some of the Latins and different stuff like that, they will still say white. Even if you ask them, they will still say they're white. Even the Asians, some of them will say the same thing. So I mean, they're still catered to they still have a market. The blacks on the other hand is a very small market, and if you want to really include and diversify, you're going to have to change. You're going to have to open those you're going to have to open those stories up. That's all I'm saying. It can't just be angry black women and we're cheating on each other all the time.
understood. And I think that's what the lack of creativity comes in and then the budget for it. But I won't say that the black market is not a market because the Black Panther was one of the highest grossing movies in Marvel history. I said one of.
Oh yeah, I'm not denying that.
So I mean the revenue is there because black people will go if they see it's representing them. And that was a big deal when the Black Panther came out. So the market is there. It's just the roles and the opportunity is not there consistently. Yes, it's here and there. It's like breadcrumbs. But I agree with you. Instead of taking leftover roles, it has to be more creativity in our community than just that. But they think that that's all we want to see.
No, I don't. They know what we want to see, but I personally think that if Black people got together and start creating their own shows, it would blow things out of the water and
Mm-hmm.
start becoming their own creators and stop waiting on somebody to give you something. But they want to be a part of they want the mainstream market so bad that they are willing to keep waiting. And guess what? If you keep sitting there waiting for your dish to be filled, you're going to starve to death. You better
Mm-hmm.
claw yourself, you better dig up under that cage and get yourself out of the box.
Agreed. Well, this topic can go on and on and on. And I think that the main thing is blackwashing taking over mainstream movies and becoming an issue.
Is it becoming an issue?
Yes.
I don't like it. But I'm a purist.
I understand. I understand. The people are gonna
And
like,
not a purist like, what you mean?
what
No,
do you mean?
I'm just like, when it comes to things like, even like Interview with a Vampire, as somebody who grew up reading Anne Rice, I was just kind of disappointed. That's not what I wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
I like the original versus the new show, and I'm not here for it. And I don't have any Black hate in my heart. Oh, well, you must not like Black. I do, but that's not it.
That's not.
um I feel like the best inclusion of like Black people and things is like, another good one would be Anne Rice's Queen of the Dam. I feel like that was a beautiful inclusion of Black people that gave us this, it gave us this window to see how Black people can be in movies and blow it out of the water. I don't think people knew how big of history Akasha, played by Aaliyah, made, because it showed like goth people, and especially Black goth people, that there was a genre out there, that Black people were goth. This movie was one of the biggest gothic movies other than The Crow, played by Landon Lee. And so many of us fell in love with that. And we felt, and that's how some people learned who Anne Rice was. And it just went from there and just, it kept going. So it's not that Black people can't bridge the market, because we can play these roles and we can play them very well. And she played such a small role, but it was so iconic and it opened the door. It's just that, we have to find the right people that are willing to give us a chance. But now we have so much technology, we can be our own producers. But I think it's damaging is when we are taking things from other people, when we're, damaging when we're saying that Anne Boleyn is a person that isn't white, as if other people don't have other race or social identities, because they do. So I think that's when it's dangerous on both sides. We're too smart to keep doing the things we did back in the past. This is not that time.
That's understood. And I think that some people just like, it's just a movie. It doesn't matter. We just want to see someone that represents me or looks like me in a movie. That's it. And a lot of people are, we're just average minded people are just saying, it's not that serious. It's just a movie. But I could see where the conflict is and where it's controversy when you're taking roles from a historical actor and putting them into a Black
Yeah,
role.
honestly,
I get
I'm blacked out, because I feel like, when did y'all pop up in everything? As a Black person, I'm black the fuck out. I'm tired.
Maybe because I don't watch that much TV, I don't see it all the time. I mean, I see it here and there,
No,
but
I know I'm not even so much as a TV biggie. I'm just like, I notice, especially like, I am a comic book buff and I am an anime buff and I am, into stuff like that. And I noticed that a lot of it there. And I think the reason why I'm all blacked out is because I know it's pandering and not an authentic reason behind it.
Mhm.
I know that the reason you're gender bending this character is because you want to be inclusive and not because this character is another gender. And I just don't think that's fair. I'm irritated because there's plenty of female characters. Why change it?
Exactly. Well, I'm just really annoyed with the gender bender. I think that what bothers me more because if that character was made for that person, I guess I could see the same with the color washing or the whitewashing and blackwashing. But my thing is, and I really want to take from that what you said earlier, it's become creative, your own innovator, and stop and just there's a market out there. There's a market. Just be an innovator of what you want to be. Don't have to steal from someone else.
Yeah.
Make it your own. And I love that. So do you have any closing words for us today?
I just as a unit, Black people, we just got to stop taking the leftovers. And I understand some of us are just trying to make it. They want to be in Hollywood. We want to be seen. I totally get that. But I think as a Black community, we do ourselves a disservice when we take from other races and other cultures versus incorporating and making and creating our own. We are so creative. We are the ingenuities and the inventors. We have people all around the world that, especially Black American, I want to be very specific. Black Americans are so inventive that people emulate us all around the world. The English, the African, the Asians, all of us, a lot of them emulate our culture, even though they've never seen it firsthand. So copying just doesn't seem like flattery. I think it's time for us to step out and be bold and use all those amazing qualities that we have and, make our things for us.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Well said. I love it. Well, that's today's episode of Millennial Intent, Conversations That Matter.
To hear more from Millennial Intent, hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to tell a friend.